People who've read the book said to me, wow, I never realized this. I never knew about these people, these stories. I've had people who have been in the Salvation Army for 40 years on the verge of retirement say that they weren't aware of the extent to which people of color were involved in the Salvation Army's history. And this is the kind of reaction that I'm looking for from this book. I want people to be able to look at it and say, wow, and feel proud of the fact that as people of color, we have made a huge contribution to this whole process that has brought the Salvation Army to where it is today. It's in 121 countries around the world, and it's the premier social service agency in the United States today. Peter Drucker called it the most effective organization in the United States. And I want people to realize that people of color have had a role to play in the development of this organization. And as a journalist, over the last 25 years, I have chronicled the history of the Salvation Army here in this country. And during that time, I came across these amazing stories about how this organization has helped meet the practical human needs of people in this country in the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina, in the aftermath of 9/11, and now during the time when we are experiencing the most catastrophic natural disaster, well, man-made disaster, I should say, in our history in the Gulf, where oil has been spilled and it continues to flow. People in the Salvation Army are down there right now, making a difference, trying to help the people get their lives back in those areas where they've been devastated. And this is the kind of work that this organization continues to do. And these are the kind of stories that over the years I've read time and time again. And you know what? I came to realize that people of color have been involved in this type of work with the Salvation Army since its inception. And I'm talking about back in 1872, when the Salvation Army first got its foothold in the United States. It wasn't called the Salvation Army at that time, it was called the Christian Mission. But people of color have been involved in it since then and on into the present day, from those who gathered during the first open-air meetings in the streets of Cleveland, Ohio, and New York City and Philadelphia, to those who rolled up their sleeves and became volunteers to help with the work that needed to be done to help meet the practical human needs of people in these cities and rural areas as well, right into those who have actually given their lives and dedicated their lives in service as Salvation Army officers or pastors, across the country. And so I came across these stories and they were wonderful, but teasingly short. And I thought, wouldn't it be grand? Wouldn't it be terrific if I could read them in their entirety between the pages of one book? And this is what really got me started thinking about writing this book. And I wasn't alone. A friend of mine, Daniel Conwa, who is now a Salvation Army pastor in New Rochelle, New York, had a similar idea. And what's interesting about Daniel is that although he is African, really African from the Congo, he had this passion to document and chronicle the history of people of color in the Salvation Army here in this country. And we got together and realized that this was something that its time had come. And we were both inspired by a third person, Norma Roberts, who was a Salvation Army officer way back in the 1949. And she ministered in places like Arkansas in the South and turned that town of Little Rock, Arkansas upside down with her ministry. And then in 1972, she wrote a pamphlet called The Black Salvationists, which was in fact the first attempt to chronicle the history of people of color in the Salvation Army. And although it was just a booklet, it was widely and well and warmly received by many, and it created a buzz about the people of color. And so a groundswell of support began where people wanted to take this to the next logical level. From the grassroots to the very higher echelon of Salvation Army administration. They wanted to see a book that really told these stories in their entirety. And so Daniel and I and others began this work back in 1999. And that was a while ago, and we didn't realize just how much work it would take to pull these stories together. But over time, we were able to do that. And so it's my hope and that this book will truly put people of color on the map when it comes to the Salvation Army's ministry throughout the United States and throughout the world. And it's a rapidly growing organization. As a matter of fact, Africa is the place where the Salvation Army membership is just exploding right now. And the Army continues to meet human need wherever it might be. You may not see these ministers on TBN or the Word Network or preaching within the four walls of a megachurch, but you will find them in the trenches at a place like Hurricane Katrina. You will find them in the aftermath of a devastating earthquake like the one that struck Haiti or Chile. This is the place where they do their ministry. This is where they call church. And so I want to make it clear through this book, through the pages of this book, what the Salvation Army's ministry has meant to the African American community, and to also enlighten people about the facts of how people of color have made it possible for the Salvation Army's ministry to be effective here in the United States to the extent that it has.